Hey guys, it's Anna from Bright Lane Gardens. We're at the end of September and cruising straight on into October, which is of course the perfect time to harvest your milkweed seeds. In today's video, we're going to run through a quick tutorial that talks about how to identify seed pods that are ready to be harvested, the best procedure for harvesting these milkweed seeds, and tips and tricks for a successful storage over the winter season. The milkweed on this property was not planted by me. It was planted by nature. So it's in a different location every year and I just have to go out for the hunt. Let's check around and find a couple seed pods that are ready to be harvested. I didn't have to search long at all. I found this one almost immediately. This milkweed plant is so heavy and so weighed down with so many seed pods that it's really at risk of tipping over. The milkweed plant that's behind this one is actually the only thing that's preventing it from tipping over. So this guy is laden with seeds and he is so ready to be harvested. There's a couple key things that I'm looking for. Typically, you'll notice that some of the leaves near the top of the plant are starting to die off. They'll turn brown, they're gonna start to curl at the edges, and that's telling you that the plant is near the end of its life cycle and it's already produced its seeds that are ready to be harvested. The next thing I'm looking at is going to be the seed pod itself. So you might be able to see this from there, I might have to zoom in, but this seed pod near the top here is already split. I didn't touch this one at all. It came like this, and that's a really clear indicator that this seed pod has already started to dry out and is naturally splitting at that seam. In nature, if no one were to harvest these seed pods, eventually this plant would die all the way back and all the moisture would drain from the plant, which would cause the shell of that seed pod to naturally dry out and split right at that seam. So this one has already started that process, and as you can tell, it's the one that's actually nearest to the top, which is typically the more mature pods are closer to the top of the plant. Zooming in on this plant in particular, this is that natural split that I was talking about on one of the top pods here. There's a natural seam that goes right along the full length of the pod on every pod, and this is where that pod is going to split 9 times out of 10. So this guy has already started to split, and as we go down the plant, I actually see another pod down here that has started to split right down that seam as well. So that's a key indicator that these 2 pods at minimum are ready to be harvested, and likely more on this same plant are ready to be harvested. Another key indicator that these guys are ready to be harvested is actually the milk residue. So I'm going to zoom in on this one here because it's a little bit more fresh. You can see that milky white residue. Just a word of caution, this is technically mildly poisonous. A lot of people choose to handle these seeds and these plants with gloves. If you are concerned about it, I do encourage you to do the same, but just be aware of it. Don't ever touch this milky residue and touch your mouth or your eyes because it does have a mild toxicity to it. I see other evidence of these milky deposits here and up top here as well. And that just means that as these seed pods have started to split open at the seams, they've drained out a little bit of that milky white fluid, which is of course also where the term milkweed comes from. So I see evidence of these drops. I'm seeing these natural seams here. I have my dead or drying leaves near the top of the plant. There's a lot of key indicators here telling me that these seed pods are probably ready to be harvested. So let's pull off one of these pods and see what's inside. So this is that seed pod that was right near the top that had that natural split in it. And we're going to just gently pull these 2 sides apart. Again, use gloves if you are concerned at all. This one's just a practice one. If you are going to harvest these seeds, I do recommend having a little container below because as you can see, the seeds really just want to fall right out of there. So this guy is definitely ready for harvest. There's a couple things that are telling me that he's ready for harvest. First and foremost, these seeds are brown. When the seed pod is not quite mature enough, and if it prematurely splits, these seeds would be a creamy white or an off-white color. That off-white color does tell you that these seeds have not dried out yet and they're not mature enough to harvest. So these seeds are a really nice chestnut brown and they're falling right off of this pupa. It's very easy to pull these seeds off. These are key indicators that these seeds are mature and ready to be harvested for sure. So I was able to get quite a few seeds from just that single pod and pretty much a little handful here. That's impressive considering that plant probably has 8 or 9 pods on a single plant. So next what we're going to do is I'm going to harvest a couple of these pods and take them into my plant workshop so we can zoom in and dissect these pods a little bit further, and we'll also talk about storing the seeds. Notice that I'm still leaving about 1/3 of the pods on this plant. I do want these plants to continue to reproduce across my yard, so I want to make sure that I'm leaving some seeds behind for Mother Nature to take her course. Just note that if you want to plant milkweed in your landscaping, but you're afraid that it's going to get away on you, harvesting those seed pods before they can spread is a key method for containing milkweed in a certain area of your yard and preventing it from spreading to other areas. There's a couple tools that I have on hand before I start harvesting these seeds out of the pod. First, I have a little spray bottle filled with water and some paper towels. This milky residue, as I mentioned before, is mildly toxic. It's also super sticky. So any surface that it gets on, I want to make sure that I'm wiping it down afterwards. And after I'm done saving these seeds, I want to make sure that I'm also washing my hands with soap. The second thing that I have in front of me here is just a little dish that I'm never going to use for food because, again, it's mildly toxic. And these are just so I can contain the seeds as I harvest them out of the seed pods. We're going to open these pods one at a time, take out all of the seeds, separate the seeds from everything else, and put them in this dish. Once we're completely done with that, we'll talk about ideal storage solutions. Let's zoom in so we can take a closer look. Something to note, not all of these seed pods had that natural split that I showed you on the plant earlier. If your seed pod does not have that natural split, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not ready to be harvested. There were plenty of other signs available on this particular plant that told me that the majority of these seed pods were ready to be harvested. If you don't have that natural split, you'll go ahead and split it manually. Find the seam that appears on your pod. There should be one area of your pod that has a natural line on it. You can see it with your eyes there. And if you are unsure, you can even give it a little squeeze and see if there's, right there. See if there's any part of the pod that just naturally kind of pops open. This seam is definitely the best way to harvest these seeds with the least amount of milk residue. So from there, we're gonna go ahead and pull it open, and I have these nice chestnut brown seeds again. So again, these are healthy, happy seeds that are ready to be harvested. I'm gonna bring my dish over here. Now I can see my milk residue right down here at the bottom. So I'm going to wipe that slightly. Okay. From here, I'm going to hold this white tail here. This white tail is called the pappus. So on a single seed here, this white, fluffy, string-like tail is called the pappus. And what this does is once this seed pod completely dries out, this pappus is gonna fluff out really nice and fluffy, just like a dandelion seed. And of course, that is meant to be caught by the wind so that this seed can fly away to other parts of the yard and create a bunch of new milkweed plants. For storing these seeds, I do not like to keep that pappus or that white tail on my seeds. So I really want to try to harvest as many of these seeds as I can and only include the seed in that harvest. If you're able to get the seeds out in a nice little bundle like this, you're going to grip on to the end of this tail with one hand, and with your other hand, you'll gently massage the end and try to get as many of those little brown seeds to fall off as you can. If you did have any pappus that fell in, go ahead and manually pluck those out. It is possible to store the seeds with the pappus on. I prefer not to because I feel that it increases your chances of introducing mold or mildew into your seeds. I really like to only store seeds when it comes to native plants. Watch out, these will stick to everything, which is kind of annoying. Okay, so I've got most of them. It looks like there's still a few seeds left in there, so let's try to get as many as we can out of this pod. You'll have some fall right out of the pod as well. Once you've gotten the majority, it's time to move on to your next pod. Let's select this one this time, and this guy again did not have a natural split. He does have some milk residue on him, so I do still feel confident that he's ready. I'm gonna go ahead and give him a little squish from some different angles, and I got that natural split there. We'll pull this open. Try to grab it right from the very top if you can. I'm gonna dump out any seeds that fell off inside the pod, and we'll do this process all over again. Rinse and repeat until you've made it through all of your pods. This is probably one of my first pods that I've ever gotten every single seed out of there. That was pretty good. Okay, after harvesting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seed pods, this is how many seeds I was able to collect. Quite a few. I would definitely say 200 or 300 seeds are in here. Nice and dry. They're definitely ready to be stored, and these are all mature seeds. So I didn't open a single one of these seed pods to discover cream or white colored seeds. They were all brown seeds. They had those nice crispy edges to them, and the seams opened really easily on these seed pods. So I feel confident that these seeds are mature seeds that will germinate next season. When all is said and done, you might be left over with a lot of fluff. And inside this fluff, you can see that there are still quite a few seeds left over. You can, if you have the time, take the time to pick out each of these individual seeds. Or if you're like me and you're in a hurry all the time, you can go ahead and just harvest a few extra seed pods to make up the number of seeds that you would like. And this whole pile of fluff, we can just toss outside so that nature can take its course and plant these guys where she chooses next year. Now that I have my seeds harvested, I'm ready to go ahead and put them in storage. If you've been watching my seed collection videos, then you've already seen me reference this handy dandy seed storage suitcase. I just think it's so dorky and so funny that I have to show it off every time. But I have to admit, it's been a huge help in my seed storage solution. This is my second one. I have my first one completely filled, but it does come with these little itty bitty seed collection containers. We'll use several of them today to store all of these milkweed seeds. And it also comes with these nice little labels that you can put right on top to correctly label your seeds. Although milkweed seeds do have a bit of a unique appearance, you do want to make sure you're labeling them, because if you're also collecting your butterfly milkweed seeds, these look really similar to those. So you'll want to know which variety you're working with. Once I have my seeds inside, I'm going to go ahead and label this with milkweed and the year. You'll pop those in there and close this container. Of course, you don't have to have a seed storage solution like this. You just have to have a dry and dark place to store your seeds. I don't recommend using paper envelopes unless you have a watertight container to place those envelopes in, because even humidity in the air can cause a seed to not be viable the following season. One last important note: milkweed seeds do require a cold stratification period to successfully germinate in the spring. So if you're planning on holding on to these seeds until May or June of next year, you're unlikely to successfully germinate them in that season. What you'll want to do is follow my steps for cold stratification in a refrigerator so that these seeds will successfully germinate when you do choose to plant them outside or plant them in a container. If you're interested in learning more about my cold stratification period or about my germination process for milkweed seeds specifically, I have a couple of videos for you that I'll link in the description below, and I'll also tag them in the upper corner of this video too. If you are a beginner and you're intimidated by the seed collection process like I was when I was a beginner, trust me, milkweed seeds is a great one to start out with. These seeds are so easy to collect. The seed pods are very easy to identify, and these guys have a really good germination rate in the spring, so your success rate can be high right off the bat. Seed collection is a really awesome way to keep going with your native gardening and reduce your overall costs. Starting your native plants from seeds over taking a cutting can also increase the genetic diversity that you have in your own backyard, which is beneficial for your local ecosystem as a whole. If you haven't tried collecting your own seeds yet, then I highly recommend starting with a plant like common milkweed, coneflower, or butterfly milkweed. These guys are no-brainers and so easy to start from seed. It'll really get you excited about collecting some of the more difficult species as well. That's all I have for my tutorial today. I'm so appreciative that you took the time to stop by and check out what we have to offer here. If you're interested in collecting more seeds, I've got more seed collection videos coming up. And this winter, we'll walk through step-by-step guides on how to successfully germinate the seeds that you've collected. We'll also touch on some landscape design tips, tricks, and tutorials that are curated specifically for native plant gardeners. You don't want to miss what we've got coming up, so make sure you subscribe and set up your alerts so that you know when the next video launches. Thanks so much for tuning in with us today, and I sure hope to catch you next time. Bye-bye.